coffee, big cup, and hello. Welcome to another episode of the Gilmore Way Podcast. I'm Kate.
And I'm Laura. And we just got back from the FanFest Firelight event in Guilford, Connecticut, and we had the best time ever. Unreal. But we have had a few days now to reflect and review on another amazing event put together by Jenny and Marcus of the FanFest Society and their entire crew of volunteers and just everyone who comes together to help out. We had not even made it out of Guilford before we were already planning for next year. But before we, let ourselves go into the deep end on that, it's time for a recap of 2024 first.
Indeed, it was another awesome year. Even it started out with a really smooth process to get me down to Buffalo because I was leaving straight from work. I had to Uber to work with my suitcase and leave at a particular time to get a direct train, but I managed to get it. And so I was able to land in Niagara so much sooner than I was hoping. And we were able to go out for dinner. We had a little bit of time after to sort of get the last few things organized. I brought a few last minute things for the prize bags. And so we just finished our organization, got the car loaded with as much as we could, tried to get some sleep. And then we left your place at 8:30, 9 the next morning, grabbed some breakfast and giant coffees at McDonald's. And then we hit the road. Once again, driving across the chonky state that is New York. New York is thick with 4 C's, you guys. It is huge, but I will give it props for having the best rest stops of any state that I've driven through today, which is not all of them, admittedly, but praise be to Apple Green.
Yeah, pros and cons to New York will rob you blind in tolls, but has adequate bathroom and food options. So, I mean, I guess you can't have them all, but there's that. I think we did make good time getting to Connecticut too, though. We were rolling up to our hotel, I think just around 5-ish, maybe a couple of minutes after. So it gave us time to wheel in all of our stuff, which, in case you don't know us, we do not travel lightly by any extent of the imagination. That car was stuffed to the gills. So we had to bring everything in, get freshened up, but we did have enough time to do that and kind of just breathe for a second before we kicked off Thursday night activities.
Yeah, we had not a lot of time, but we got changed and we got cleaned up. I think we both were able to get in a shower as well, which is nice, after being in the car all day. And then we headed right to the fairground barn for Portraits with Nick, which was awesome. Nick Holmes is just as delightful in person as I knew he would be, and as you would hope he would be. He was just so warm and welcoming. We told him who we were, and he was like, "So you are." It was so cute. So he was able to take our picture, and then we got a selfie with him. And then there was a champagne toast. This was the opening event for everyone who bought tickets on the first day that they were available. And apparently about half of all attendees purchased their ticket on the first day. I don't know that everybody was able to make it for the first night just based on travel plans, but there was a really good contingent there. And I hope that this is something that continues in the future, because it was really nice to sort of get there a little bit early, have some events the night before, have a bit of a smaller group where it's just hey, you guys are super cool for buying tickets on the first day. So I really liked that. And it was able to provide a little extra time. I will eke every moment and experience out of FanFest that I possibly can. And, they were able to do the champagne toast. There was a trivia round. So yeah, it was a great fun night. Everybody was sort of dressed up in their brights. People were wearing neon and what do you call those things? Fluorescent necklaces. What do you call those things? Why am I blanking on what they're called? The glow sticks.
The glow in the dark sticks, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think also what's really special about the first night and just the first day in general is just having those moments of everybody seeing each other again for the first time for most folks in about a year. So, you just get to hug your pals, see everybody smile at just seeing each other from across the way and being oh, hey, it's that time again where the gang's all here, we're back together. Well, you said it so many times before, but just the environment in the community that has been cultivated from these events is really just next to none.
Emphasis on the word cult. Yes. It's the best cult ever and the one you want to join.
Yeah. The barn was a little bit drafty though, so as the evening wrapped up and trivia was done and basically festivities were done there for the night, we did seek out somewhere warmer just to have like, a couple more drinks, a nightcap to finish it off. We were not sure exactly where we wanted to go, but we stumbled across this place called Prime that's made on right on the main drag in Guilford. And I am so glad we found this place because it fully caters to Laura's uh, love of steak. I'll say that.
It is a steakhouse, yes. I mean, I'm glad we found it. It was such a pleasant experience each time we went. Like they had great selections of food and drink. But I will say I'm a little disappointed we didn't go anywhere else. We didn't try like any other restaurants except for the one where we purchased a specific ticket for the dinner event. So maybe we could have used some diversity, but then again, maybe not.
I mean, we're creatures of habit. We know what we like. So when we find a spot that, is a stamp on like that's Laura and Kate all day, we're probably going to go back there.
Yeah, exactly. And so we closed that place down. They were only open till like 11 or something, so it wasn't crazy. But Friday morning was a bit of a slow start. Neither of us was particularly excited to get out of bed because we never are. Like we're just not morning people, and so having anything before 11, it's just like no. We find nothing exciting before 11. So we sort of took our time that morning, and the first thing that we really made it to was the cake reception for the ambassadors. We were like pleasantly honored to be ambassadors this year, and so we got to go there and we got to see the other ambassadors. Some of the cast and crew were milling about, so we got a chance to chat with a few people very quickly. And
Yeah, it was a good start to the morning. I will say I was also very happy that the hotel we were staying at had free complimentary breakfast. Shout out to that because there's nothing like subpar coffee.
it was such bad coffee
to really get you going.
Oh, it was so bad. We had to make a special trip to the Big Y just to go get some Starbucks cold brew to get us through the rest of the weekend after that. Um, yeah. And the other thing that we kind of did first that was somewhat inadvertent was there were these picnic tables outside of the barn. And, a few people came up to us and were like, "Are you participating in the token exchange?" And I was like, yes, I am. I made something like 350 friendship bracelets. I had like 14 bags like this that were all labeled with everything that was inside the bag. And when I tell you it was unwieldy, it's an understatement. And so what happened was I started pulling everything out of the bag and they started getting kind of spread out around the table. And more people would just keep coming and be like, "Whose bracelets are these? Are you selling bracelets? Can I have one?" I'm like, "Yes, please take as many bracelets as you would like." Because I have way too many. I'm wearing a small selection here. I made FanFest 2024, FanFest Society, Firelight Event, Road Trip to Guilford, Sexy Squash, which if you know, you know, and very much in my gourd that goes along with that. And then this Dave Rogalski one was actually a token from someone else that I got. And then I've got Funny Bottoms for attendee Max Medina, She Jogs for Katie Walder, You Don't Got It for Greg Henry, Ass Esquire for Nick Holmes, You Suck Bill for Devin Michaels, number 67 for Rona Benson, which was her Yale Daily News hat number, and Huzzah for the Tippers for Kathleen. And then one of my favorites that I made, I was very proud of myself for this one because I taught myself to do the double strand. So we have Golden and Gilmore Girl. That one was for one of our faves, Stan Zimmerman. So yeah, I found a new hobby, and brace yourself for next year because y'all are getting friendship bracelets again. But this time I'm gonna try to make them a little more organized and probably give out batches of like 2 to 4 at a time. So I'm gonna try to put together little like batches that make sense together. So it'll be hopefully much easier to manage. The organza bags should be here any moment now.
Yeah.
I'm already planning this, yes.
Yeah, we are literally not kidding when we say that we like spent hours in the car verbally already talking about 2025. There are planning docs that are already in the works. we're nothing if not A to Zers. So that's just us. Come catch us in 2025. We'll have all the good stuff. Friendship bracelets included.
Yeah, I've literally like copy and pasted all of the planning docs from this year to next year already. So it's actually like already in motion.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
after that, we did end up, just grabbing a quick lunch. Should not come to any surprise that once again hit up Prime. It is really nice, I think, throughout the day to just have those moments to just breathe and to be able to sit down and just grab a beverage, a cup of coffee, tea, booze, whatever floats your boat. A lot of people were doing that outside one of the main drags coffee shops as well, which ended up having an amazing latte. So shout out to them. But one thing I really did enjoy about Guilford and what we've seen in a lot of feedback from people is just how warm and welcoming the businesses were in terms of just opening their doors to people, wanting to talk to them about who are you, what is this group, what are you doing here. So again, huge shout out to the townsfolk of Guilford as well. Just lovely folks who were happy to have us there when that isn't necessarily always the case when you get hundreds of people just flocking to your town.
Yeah, it's already a small town with limited parking and interesting traffic patterns and limited space. And so to have, 700, 750 people or more, not to mention regular tourists flocking all at once, it can be pretty overwhelming. But everybody was curious and friendly and were, chatting us up at the bar or on the street. And it was so nice to meet locals who were like, "What are you here for?" It was so nice.
Yep. After that quick respite, we ended up getting online for Rona's meet and greet. It was so awesome to have her at one of these events for the first time. She is lovely. She is just so friendly and engaging to everybody that she talks to. Unsurprising because pretty much all of these attendees are, but it's just really nice to be able to go up and say hi, see these faces that you've only ever seen on television. We told her as well that we were going to be talking to her again for a panel, 2 days from then. And she was just very excited and warm about that. Another perk to standing in these lines is also being able to see everybody's costume ideas. Kate, if you want to talk about, I think, what was one of your favorites on that line Friday afternoon?
Yeah, shout out to Millie again for killing it. She was dressed up as the hay bale maze. Yeah, the hay bale maze. And whoever was with her, I'm not sure if it's her partner or who, but was the Minotaur, was Kirk as I am the Minotaur. And just the craftsmanship and the attention to detail on all of it was so impressive. And even more impressive was the fact that they wore that around all day. They didn't even save it for just the costume contest that night. They were like, no, I'm going to go around town dressed like a hay bale. And I was like, how are you not dying of heat in there? But props. It was super cool. They always pull out all of the stops for their costumes. So just keep bringing it because I'm always interested to see what people come up with. And that was a good one.
Yeah. After that, we did run back to the hotel. We had some prep that we needed to do to get ready for our Gilmore's Against Humanity game panel that evening, making sure everything was organized there. So we had a little bit more downtime to do that. Before we get into the game panel and talking about what that was like, I do want to shout out our judges and the 5 wonderful women who helped us out this year. Steph, Mackenzie, Libby, Amy, and Jenny. We are so grateful for you reaching out and just being willing to assist us with that event. There were other folks who had offered as well. So we just wanted to say thank you to those people as well, who just reached out and offered to help us with this. This event would not happen without 5 extra set of hands. So thank you to you. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky game to run, but now that we've figured it out and we've done it twice, I feel like we definitely have it a little more down pat. And so it was so much fun to run it again. And I'll just the winning team didn't have quite 10 members, so we were able to come away with some of our first prizes. So if and when this game happens again, not these ones specifically, but typically we do mugs for our first place team. And so this year we decided to do a take on the sort of and meme with just our favorite fall things from Stars Hollow and from Gilmore Girls, Teen Hayride and Autumn Festival and Horn of Plenty and tailgating and Cider Mill in Guilford. So we're proud of these.
Yep. After our Gilmore's Against Humanity panel, we went and got changed quickly because the costume contest was gearing up. Again, unsurprising, just top tier costumes this year. I'll start by shouting out what I think was my favorite from the entire weekend was the fuzzy shirt and keys. And it was this woman who literally was just dressed up in like this pillowy circle costume that just took over her whole body, and it just said "certs" on it. That was probably my favorite. If I had to give an overall winner, just separate from even the categories that they break things down into, I would say she was probably my favorite costume all weekend.
Yeah, I mean, talk about creative. That was so fun, and just like the wig and the makeup and all of the little details on the costume. Like, who would have thought that you could make dressing up like a breath mint super cute?
Not me, but she did it.
She nailed it. Couple of my favorites. Shout out to Megan and Sean. Sean came dressed as Dwight, and Megan was his lawn and board game collection. That was a good one. And also, congratulations to them. They got engaged this weekend, which is just so perfect because they're longtime attendees. It's kind of like one of their big things that they do, and they're nice people and a nice couple. So it was really nice to see that that they'll have a memorable engagement. So congrats to them. And then another one that I really loved was Bridget as Paris after she's been rejected from Harvard. I had sex, but I'm not going to Harvard. She totally nailed the performance on that.
Yeah, there were a lot of really great costumes. We said after the fact that we weren't sure if we were going to do it again for 2025 because it does entail a lot of extra packing and prep in terms of buying what you need to get all of the outfits together and then just factoring in the space that's needed to transport those outfits. But I know Kate has already bounced around some really excellent ideas for 2025. We're obviously not going to tell you what they are, but we may do this again because some of them are just seemingly too hard, too difficult to like turn down and pass up. So just again, another reason why you need to come back to 2025 to see all of these amazing outfits and everything that people come up with.
Yeah, that was the downside of the barn this year, was just that because there were like twice as many people at this year's event than last year, it was a little tighter. And so if it's in Guilford again, especially, and we know that we're going to be back in the barn, we know that we have less space to work with in terms of like, okay, this is a lot to schlep and then try to stick under our seats because there's really not as much space as we had in the theater last year. Not as many little like nooks and crannies to tuck stuff. So something to think about, but it depends, I guess, on how big you go. But like the CERT would not have been able to sit down in her seat.
Yeah, and no event is perfect, but that was something that I thought was just a little bit more enjoyable about last year in Maine was that the Levitt had, adequate seating to accommodate everybody, and you didn't feel like you were just, 100 fish in one fishbowl. In the barn, you were pretty much shoulder to shoulder with everybody, and the chairs were not as comfortable. So that would be like, I guess, something that I would put on like the con list for me for Guilford. But it certainly was not something that was just unbearable or intolerable.
Yeah, it wasn't super make or break. And obviously, you're dealing with sort of an outside venue that doesn't have as good of insulation or heating. So it did get a little chilly at night, but you can plan for that and you can dress in layers. But I thought one of the pros to the barn was that it was sort of off on its own. It didn't seem like we were bothering the neighbors or anything. We could kind of be loud and do our own thing and run everything on the mics, do karaoke and all of these dance parties and stuff, seemingly without noise complaints, which is a big pro. So it was nice to sort of like know that there was ample parking and that we had our own space and that everybody who was there was a FanFest attendee. It didn't feel like we were taking over the streets or taking over other public spaces. It was kind of nice to be off on our own.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of karaoke, a little bird may or may not have told me that you were just dropping some tunes at night, that you decided to sing a little song. Can you tell us what you went with and how that went over for you?
I've watched Eras way too many times and decided to go with Ready for It by Taylor Swift. So I put on all of my glitter and rocked out to some Reputation. Still waiting for Rep TV to drop, just saying. But yeah, that was fun. I have no idea if it was any good or not, but I had fun. So
I think it was good. And, you know, it's T-Swiss. So it's always just an excellent choice. Everybody knows who it is when it comes on. Always gets a round of applause and appreciation for that in general. So that was definitely fun. I think that was also a really nice way to, you know, pretty much start winding down the evening for us. Friday and Saturday, I think, were like the 2 longest days that we had. So we knew that, you know, we were going to need to very quickly head back and start, you know, prepping for the next day, getting some sleep, XYZ.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed we didn't stay through the whole thing because usually Eris closes the show down with New York, New York. So maybe next year, you know. But this year we had plans and we knew that we were going to want to be up at a decent time so that we could be at Yale by, what was it, 9, I think was when the parking lots opened for tailgating.
We do enjoy various aspects of certain sporting endeavors, tailgating amongst them. So we made it a point to get up earlier than we, again, would have liked. But we did get out to the Yale Bowl, pulled into the parking lot. And it was really nice to just be able to sit in the car, watch everybody tailgating. There was an abundance of cornhole going on. So we just saw families partaking in that. We were able to take some jaunts around the bowl itself, see what was going on. They had a giant inflatable Dan that's literally probably 100 feet tall, which is spectacular.
I think that's hyperbolic, but he was large. He was like 30 feet tall.
Okay, yeah, probably not 100 feet tall because then that's like Godzilla. But case in point, it's a very, very large inflatable bulldog. And I think that's really fun to see. You know, we didn't get to go inside for the event because we had other things that we needed to get back to Guilford for that afternoon. But I know in the coming years, we're hoping to actually get inside to watch the Yale football team do its thing in person.
And send whatever school's team home in a body bag.
Dan, we salute you.
We salute you. It's so great that my fiance's name is Dan because, you know, there's a lot of room for play there. Handsome Dan and Dan, we salute you. But anyway, yeah, so tailgating was fun. It was a little bit awkward not being Yale alums or associated with Yale in any way, except besides being Gilmore Girls fans. So we kind of kept to ourselves a little bit. But we did spot people with Bloody Marys who did not forget the celery pre-cut. And yeah, it was really interesting to just go and take in the atmosphere of all of that. It was a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to trying to do that for realsies next time. But then we took off at 10:30 or so and went to the bookstore, which every time I go anywhere, I go to a bookstore, obviously. And I especially love going to college campuses. Like I've been to Harvard, Yale twice. We made a very brief stop at Princeton. I feel like there's got to be more. But like I love going to schools. I love checking out their libraries and their bookstores. And so usually Oxford, Oxford bookstore. So what I like to do is typically get a notebook and or a pen. T-shirts, mugs, all those kinds of things are my usual go-tos as well. But I already have some Yale merch. So this time I came away with a Yale moleskin. And then I got Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I didn't realize she was associated with Yale. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know until recently. Like I'd heard of Ninth House, but I didn't know that it was sort of based loosely on Yale and its secret society system, which has been sort of my ADHD hyperfixation lately after our Life and Death Brigade episode. So I'm really excited to read that one when I finally get around to it. And then I also got a book called The Thriving Lawyer, which, you know, Yale is known for its law school. So I thought a book about the sustainability of lawyers and the profession as it stands would be an interesting read now that I'm sort of back into the law and legal field. Yeah, so I love that place. This was our second time going to the Yale bookstore, so no regrets. But then we were looking for a place called Griffin's Pub. I don't actually think it was open, but Maps was telling us it was open. And it was also telling us to go down this like weird side alley. And I was like, I think that's the door for it, but it doesn't look very open. Maybe we should find something else. And as we're walking back down this alley, I was like, holy crap, that's the Yale Daily News. Like I spotted their door with like the concrete with their sort of like masthead almost, if you will, embossed into it. And I was like, well, it was a bit of a detour, but at least we found the Yale Daily News. So like we just happened to stumble upon the Britton Haddon Memorial Building.
Yep. Fate was looking out for us that day, in terms of having us go in the wrong direction, but silver lining was that. After that, we did end up finding a local bar to pop into called Three Sheets, which delighted me with the name just for what it alludes to. Kate, if you want to give the audience maybe some clarity on why Three Sheets is, in my opinion, a very apropos name for any establishment.
Yeah, this was something like I'd heard it before, but it had been many, many years. It's not an idiom that is in my vernacular, but it should be. It's getting added to the list. Three sheets to the wind means to be drunk. And I'm like, clutch. Well done. But yeah, it was a really cool little place. And the bartender was really nice. And we both had really good drinks. So it was a nice little reprieve in the middle of the day, somewhere to sit. And it was actually quite warm. Like, despite the fact that it's October, we had perfect weather the whole weekend and just like bright, clear, sunny days. And I was wearing my Yale sweater to tailgating and was like, I want to take this off. Like, that's how hot it was getting. So it was nice to just sort of like be inside and cool off for a minute before heading back to FanFest. And then we headed back to Guilford. And who did we meet after that?
Mitchum Huntsberger, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Rory was wrong and you were right. Greg Henry, again, unsurprisingly so, we'll just keep saying it, one of the nicest guys. I love how engaged he was with everybody to the point where they even had to have one of the volunteers come up and down the line and just ask people to speed it along because they were just like, no one's doing anything wrong, but Greg will just start talking to all of you for like 10 minutes, and there are hundreds of you that want to meet him, so we need to keep this going. So please help Greg be more efficient with just getting the photo, saying hi, and moving on. But it just speaks volumes, again, to the cast members that this event draws in and how happy they are to genuinely be there. They're not just doing it, for a cash grab or, for the fame aspect of it. They're really happy to be there just as much as the attendees are. And it's so delightful to see.
Yeah. And they're all just so nice and personable and amazing to talk to. Yeah. So after that, we basically had to get right back to the hotel to get ready for dinner because, as previously mentioned, we had purchased tickets to the cast dinner at Quattro's, which had a few hiccups. I think there was some slight lack of organization on the restaurant's end. So some of us were still waiting for food at 6:45 when the evening back at the fairgrounds was supposed to start at 7. So that was kind of unfortunate. But, the silver lining was we got to hang around a little bit longer, and we ended up doing tequila shots with Megan. So that was kind of fun. So unfortunately, we missed Kathleen in the process of that. We got to see her last year, and she's such a beautiful singer. And she did the choir thing again, which we talked about in our previous recaps. She invites attendees to join her, and then they will do like an hour of practice in the afternoon and put on a whole performance together. And it's beautiful, and she's got such lovely music. So it's kind of a shame that we had to miss her again this year, but them's the breaks sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. This was followed up by one of my favorite parts of any single FanFest weekend, which is the coffee monologues. And it's a reading of particular scenes and just dialogue from the show, but not necessarily by the actor or the actress who embodied those lines to begin with. So you could have Eris reading for Lorelai. You could have Greg reading for Shira, perhaps.
No, this year Eris was Rory, Nick was Lorelai, and Greg was Emily. And so we got the distinct pleasure
right
of seeing Greg Henry doing Emily's monologue, tearing down Shira from We've Got Magic to Do. let's talk about your money. You were a 2-bit gold digger. Coming from Greg Henry, just, I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I am deceased. Life has been made. I can die happy. That was hilarious.
Yeah. Rightly so, got like an ovation for that because it was just the monologue that no one ever really knew that they needed to hear. But now that you got it, it was just chef's kiss. And he delivered it perfectly. Just, yeah.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Greg that evening, we had another, this time unexpected, hilarious moment involving him at the beginning of the cast panel because we had Marcus come up just a few minutes in and was like, did anyone's iWatch, Apple Watch, or iPhone send out a distress signal because the firefighters are here?
Yep. And it turns out that we were so into the cast panel and just so lively and vivacious that Greg Henry's life alert had been triggered by our response and had it alerted the local fire department that he might be in some sort of actual distress. So we all thought, I think, that there was some sort of gag at first, but he literally had to run off stage for a second, go outside and tell them, no, I'm actually okay, and then come back on stage. But Life Alert 2024, is going down. It's just one of like the best callbacks of all time.
Yeah, there will be bracelets made for next year that just say Life Alert. So, yeah, that one's going down in infamy as possibly one of the best moments of the entire weekend. But I always love the cast panel. It's so amazing having them all together. And like they're often actors that you never saw together. And so seeing them sort of like chatting with each other and playing off each other, like you have Liz Danes and Max Medina and Robert quote unquote Grimaldi and then Yale Daily News members. And was there somebody else I'm missing on that? Oh, and like Rory's roommate, Janet, all on the same stage, all chatting with each other. And like, I don't know that there's like, other than Rona and Bill, I don't know that any of those characters ever overlapped, which is so interesting. And so just getting to hear more about their time on set and their personal lives and stories from their lives and careers, it's just always so much fun. And they're just such genuine and funny people. Like every single one of them was hilarious.
And it's the panel that no one wants to ever have end. Because I know sometimes Brian and Stacey would look to Marcus and be like, do we need to wrap it up? And I think it was a collective. Everyone was like, no, keep going, keep talking. Like, this is what we're here for. So it ran long, but no one complained. Like, it was just perfect.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite sort of like funny moments from the weekend was it during the cast panel or was this at some other time? But somebody asked, I think it was during the cast panel. People were like, where do you think your character is now? And I just remember Rona saying, I think Joni's in therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was during that. And I don't think she's wrong.
It's true. Joni was a little bit of a nervous creature. And so she's probably dealing with her anxiety with her therapist right now. Hopefully a therapist who's a little more professional than Claudia.
Yeah. Anything else about the cast panel before we move on to what happened next?
See, for me, so much of these weekends are just always a blur. I'm trying to like live in the moment and not take too many photos or too many videos. Last year I took just like so many videos and haven't watched a single one of them back in full because one, I don't have the patience for that, and two, the audio kind of sucks. And so I was just trying to be in the moment, but like you're so wrapped up in it all that the memory just does not consolidate. So unfortunately, like I wish I remembered more, but I just remember having the best time.
Yeah. I feel like I have the same reaction to the weekends too, where as much as we do and as jam-packed as the schedule is, and you're always moving from one event to the next and you're just so on the go, I feel like we got there on Thursday night. I blinked and it was Monday morning and we were leaving. And I'm like, did the weekend actually just happen? I feel like we got here an hour ago.
Yeah, totally. It went by way too fast. And I feel like in a lot of ways we did half or less of the festival itself. Because between trying to get back and forth and trying to find time to eat and our little side quests to Yale and all of these things, it felt like at times, like, we didn't really get as much time with the other attendees as we might have liked. I think no matter what you do, though, that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be some level of FOMO or something you miss out on or somebody you didn't get to catch, or at least not as long as you would have liked to hang out with them. And so I think that's just a function of how jam-packed the whole weekend is and how many options you have of things to do. Just like you get stuck in line, and unless you're sort of making the rounds very deliberately, like someone's keeping your place in line and you're able to go back and forth and hand out your tokens and stuff, like you only get a few like snippets of things. And if you're like us and you skip most of the meet and greets because you met most of these people last year, then you miss out on that time as well. So like I would call it like a minor regret of mine that we didn't do more of them, but like I feel like we were also justified in doing so because, we met these people last year. It would have been nice to maybe have a moment again with them this year, but it's a lot of standing in line, which can get very tiring, especially when you're old and have sciatica. It can just be tricky. So yeah, we sort of made a conscious decision to skip a little bit more of that this year because like last year we threw ourselves into all of this so hard and we did everything and we met everyone and it was great. But this year we were like, well, we met Scott last year. We have photos with Scott. So let's, go have lunch. It was a calculus of how do I maintain my energy and stay balanced for the weekend instead of like trying to do everything and just tiring myself out when I know that like later tonight I have a bunch of things to do and it's going to be a very long day. So it's always the balance of like having a packed awesome, like look at this, like look at how long this program is. It's like so jam-packed full of stuff. And there was stuff on this we were like, nah, just nah. Like there was stress tap dancing and we didn't make it to Never Have I Ever. We didn't make it to like any of the little shops around town that were doing giveaways or custom stuff or tastings. We didn't make it to the DIR thing because it's not really our bag, but you know what I mean? Like there's so much to do and to choose from that there's always going to be something that you miss out on. And that's just got to be okay.
Yeah. But going back to Saturday night, the evening wound down for us with attending the Gavin Gilmore's Unanswered Questions panel, which was really delightful. I feel like that was also something where I can't really recall as much of it as I wanted to, probably because I was just getting like super, super tired at that point in time. To the extent that like we didn't even manage to stick around for the dance party that was going on after that particular panel because I think we were just so spent in a way from the day that we had. We knew we were going to have to be up early again tomorrow to make sure that we had everything squared away for the Yaleys panel that we were going to be moderating. And that's where I think, like you said, FOMO before, like I had a little bit of FOMO about that because I saw a really wonderful TikTok post that somebody had put in the planning group, I think within the past day or so as of this recording from that dance party. And everyone looked like they were just having such a fun time. Nick was still there dancing with everybody. You could just feel, in my opinion, like the joyous and infectious spirit coming through that video. And so I regret not having been there, but these things will go sometimes until like midnight. And when you've already been up since like 7 or 8 in the morning, like we have, it's just hard for a lot of people to make it to that point of the night and to have the energy to like really stick around and hang for all of it.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years ago, I would have been closing that party down. But this year, like, I feel like we learned the lesson last year. We stayed up until 1 or 2 a.m. doing too much several of the nights last year. And we were dead the next morning. And so, like, we knew how hard it was for us to function like that. And so we're like, let's be, like, somewhat more reasonable this year. And so we knew to cut ourselves off a little bit earlier. So the downside of that is just, the FOMO of missing the dance party. Although I don't know how long I would have lasted in those glittery boots. So I would have had to change into some other glittery shoes to make that happen. But yeah, we did have to get back eventually. But kind of going back to the Gavin Gilmore panel, that one was a little bit more like fan fiction-y almost, where they would pose questions about like something unanswered from the show, as is implied in the name of the panel. And Nick and Steph and I think Claudia, and who was the other person? I don't know. There were 4 people up there who were participating in this, and they played in pairs, and they were just sort of like trying to come up with the funniest answers to these questions that are sort of left hanging, shall we say, in the show. So that was fun. I, again, wish I remembered anything about that panel. I just remember it being fun. And I remember meeting Gavin Gilmore the next day, and they were like so nice. So I'm looking forward to hopefully maybe collaborating with them in the near future. So yeah, go check them out if you don't know who they are. Find them on podcasts. If you know who we are, you probably know who they are, but on the off chance.
Yeah. Other than that, we pretty much went back to our rooms, showered. I think we were like lights out probably the second we hit the pillow because we were just so tired. And then we were up early again the next morning, just getting ready for our Yaley panel. I feel like to an extent, maybe we were sliding into home with that a little bit more than we would have liked. But we did manage to get it done. It ended up starting earlier in the day than we thought we were originally scheduled for. So that kind of was an added level of layered stress to the morning. But again, we accomplished it. I think the cast really enjoyed it. I got a lot of people coming up to us afterwards saying that they had a really fun, just engaging and laughable Sunday morning. So that was just a really nice takeaway from all of that.
Yeah, it's crazy because I started working on Gilmore's Against Humanity in May this year. Like I was literally going over the cards, having them printed out, started cutting them in May. And the bulk of the physical stuff required for Gilmore's Against Humanity was ready to go by Labor Day. And then after that was when I shifted my attention to the bulk of the token making and the Yaley's panel. And despite starting the PowerPoint for the fact or fiction portion of that shortly after being done all of the Gilmore's Against Humanity stuff, like it still took us a long time because there was so much research to go through, so many things to look up, and like trying to sift through things to come up with the best. And then there was images that I added in to kind of go along with it, so it wasn't just all text. And that took some time. All the formatting and everything of that PowerPoint took us some time to make all those decisions and get it done. But yeah, like you said, like if we do another panel like next year, we're having it locked and loaded before we leave. Just there's no like, oh, we'll finish it when we get there. We'll finish it in the car. It'll be fine. Actually, we had the idea this year. We were like, we should ask other people what they want to hear from the Yaleys. And I think we got like one. We managed to get one response, I think, about that. And so we had to, improvise a few more questions the night before. But, and I say that as if we didn't get through only like half of the questions we had anyway. But yeah, it was so much fun. Again, all of the Yaleys are so awesome. And, Devin Michaels was a real star for me this year. He was so funny, so engaged in everything. He was just making everybody crack up all weekend. Something I didn't know because, well, Devin Michaels is not an uncommon name, shall we say, and he happens to share a very similar name with an adult film star. And so there were some stories about that across the weekend. And so when I tried to Google him to see if there was any info I could find on him, like see what projects he's been in recently and see if I could get any background on him to see if there's anything interesting I could pull for the panel. I did that for everybody, but some of them I knew more about than others. Like I knew a little more about Katie Walder going in, but so trying to find anything about Devin Michaels was really hard. And something I didn't know that I learned like the day before our Yale's panel was that he actually went to Yale. And so I was expecting for him to win our fact and fiction, but he did not. That honor went to Rona Benson.
It was a close race, though. I think they were all a point separated from one another in terms of how the final scores played out. But Rona did take home the cake for the Yale Leaps panel. That was also really fun to do. We ended up learning a lot of things about Yale that I think we didn't know, how it's been incorporated into modern day media as well, specifically The Simpsons. That was a fun little episode to find out about with the Whiffin Poofs. But they were, again, just so pleasant to talk to, so willing to answer our questions, especially just shout out to Devin. I feel like a lot of the time we would just be like, Devin, got anything to say? And he would just go off, and it's like, you made our job so easy.
Yeah, that's why we only got through less than half of our questions, was like everyone was just so loquacious that we didn't even have to do any work, really. So it was a shame that Katie had to leave early because of traffic getting to JFK. So I wish we'd had a little more of an opportunity to integrate her into the whole thing. But it was still so much fun to have everybody, and we were so honored to even be able to do a cast panel at all. It was so much fun, and we were so happy that we got to do that. So yeah, and then after that, well, actually, another thing that was happening that morning was the open mic, and we missed a bunch of it because of um, just prepping for our own panel, and so we got there kind of late. But what did you think of the open mic? I don't know if this is something they've done in the past or whether this was a new add-on this year, but what were your thoughts on that?
I really enjoyed it because it wasn't just about people necessarily coming and doing one thing like singing. Um, you had a lot of musical talent, people playing instruments. There was a lot of stand up that was going down, people just sharing their own stories from the weekend. And so kudos to everybody who gets up there on stage to do that, because I know that takes a lot of nerve as well to just perform in front of an audience of peers. As warm as these people are, when it's people you don't know, that can take a lot of guts. So, again, shout out to everybody who got up and did that. But I thought it was just really nice to see. There were a lot of really great comedic moments, and it's actually encouraged me to think about doing something like that for next year, which you've already thrown out some really good stand-up ideas for, so that I'll have to percolate on. But I liked it. You get to know things about these people that you might not have. For instance, one of our friends, Steph, who was helping us out with the Gilmores Against Humanity panel, has one of the most amazing voices that I heard all weekend. And it's like, I would have never known that about her had she not got up on stage and done that. So I think it's also just really wonderful to see everybody just throwing their creative output into this like universe and just letting us all sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's not always easy to get attendees really involved in stuff when you have, content creators and cast and crew running the rest of the sort of regular events. And so it was really nice to be able to get even more people involved and bringing a piece of themselves to the Fan Fest as well. So I hope we see it again. I have a few ideas myself. More of mine are, well, one is, let's just say, a take on something that's existing. And another is a funny musical moment from the show that could be fun to recreate. So, oh no, there's a third one, which I feel like there's no way not to spoil it, so I'm just not even going to say, but I've got 3 ideas. Although, like we said earlier, if we're not competing in the costume contest, I don't know why we would put ourselves to the ringer of trying to prep something else for the open mic, because, like I said, we were prepping for this months and months in advance, and we knew exactly what to expect, and we still wound up just doing a lot last minute, even with all of the foresight and all of the prep and the time and effort that went into everything. So trying to add something else on top of that. We'll see if it happens, but it was fun. And even if we don't, it's nice to have other people who are able to put themselves out there and be a little bit more a part of it too.
That was delightful. After our panel, we were followed up by Christine, who was doing book club trivia, just basically throwing out questions. Round 1 easy, round 3 not so much, but just about all of the nods to the show in terms of quotes, mentions, things like that about Rory's book list, mentions from other characters as well. I thought it was a very nice and different take from the trivia that Andrea does, which is still spectacular, but just having this be more singularly focused on just book references from the show was, I think, another fun just aspect of the weekend. You, as obviously someone who has had a history in book selling, and we're both voracious readers. I think we both enjoyed that for several different reasons. And Christine was a really great panel host for that. Go check out her channel and her content as well if you have not already. She's just constantly dropping some really great stuff.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to collab with her too. That's something we haven't really touched on the pod yet, is literature. So she's the obvious choice for a guest.
Obviously.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Jenny always ends off the weekend with doing a ton of giveaways. So there was some pretty cool swag and merch that got handed out. They do like a big raffle. So you definitely have to stick around to the end and get raffle tickets and come away with free stuff. Like we got a really cool poster. I think it's the Summer Madness Festival poster. That's like someone made these movie posters for a party one year. Like this was years ago. I think it might have even been around the release of the revival. And they had a whole party and made a bunch of them. And so we took away one of those. But there were, like pillowcases and t-shirts and tote bags and
500 pounds of red vines.
Oh my God, so many red vines. The amount of red dye in there could, kill a horse. Anyway, yeah, red vines, I think, very kindly sponsored this event or something, because wow.
Very kindly sponsored.
Yeah, just a lot of fun giveaways. And then someone knitted an entire Luke's blanket and raffled that off with special raffle tickets. Someone, as their token, did raffle tickets for a signed Taylor Swift album. So that was really cool. Yeah. Oh, and then Steve and Heather presented Marcus and Jenny with a special memory book with photos of the fan fests. And I someday hope to maybe see a little bit more of that book, but they're working on another special project this year. So definitely go hunt down that post in the FanFest planning page if you want to be a part of whatever scheme it is they've cooked up for next year.
Yeah, but that did close out the weekend. Again, I feel like went by way too fast. It was just gone before we even knew what had happened. But we did stick around to just help, clean up, put away all the folding chairs that were in the barn, and it allowed us to have those last minute goodbyes with Jenny and Marcus. Had to wait a little bit for Jenny because she is rightly so very popular. And I think a lot of people are just waiting in line to always thank her for what she does for that entire weekend. But it was nice to be able to just have those moments to really say goodbye to everybody, knowing that you're not going to see them again for a year.
Potentially.
It's fine. If you're going on the cruise, I know those folks will get to see each other a lot sooner. But it's bittersweet, and it's just nice at the same time to just, give everybody those last goodbye hugs and just, reminisce over what an amazing weekend we all just had.
Bittersweet is a very good word. I concur with that sentiment. But then after that, I would have stuck around all afternoon just being like, what else can we do? Let's hang around, see who's sticking around. But we actually had some plans this year. We booked this months ago. We made the trek to the Mayflower. We made a very brief stop there on our road trip in 2022, but it was closed for a private event, so we weren't able to stay and park and go inside. But this year we made a reservation at the tap room, so we stayed for dinner. I had some delightful local beers from Kent and a butternut squash soup. What's the white stuff? I think some sort of cream, and the green stuff, I think it's better picked off. Oh, and then we had these amazing poppy seed buns and an onion dip that I want to take a bath in.
Yeah. I don't know what the secret ingredient in that French onion dip was. It's probably crack for how amazing it was. But if they jarred that, I would have just been give me half a dozen. I just need to take that home with me. It was spectacular. Yeah. Your food was great. My food ended up being a bit of a miss, which was unfortunate because I would have expected a little bit more from the Mayflower and an establishment that is just that lovely from start to finish in terms of decor. The people that work there, accommodations, the grounds, everything like that. But you know what? It was just nice to be able to still get in there, have that experience, sit down for dinner, all things considered. So I'm glad we did it at least once.
At least they didn't charge you for your burnt hockey puck.
Yeah. I ordered a steak. It just came out like it had been in like on the grill for like 6 hours and was just obviously eating like burnt charcoal. But it's okay. We had the experience.
Yeah, I think it was worth it for the experience, but it was like over an hour drive each way. So it was a lot of effort for charcoal and blood. Yeah. So, but that was kind of our last big thing. Then we just headed back to our hotel room, got packed up and cleaned up for the next day, tried to get an early night. We both were just so sleep deprived. Like I got next to no sleep the night before. Just the anxiety of knowing that I still had things to do in the morning for the Yaleys panel was not good for my sleep. I was having anxiety dreams about prizes. It was a whole thing. But yeah, so that's part of the reason that like the Yaley panel was such a blur for me. I don't even remember half of the answers to the questions that we asked. Hopefully next year I remember it this time. But yeah, so finally tried to get some sleep because we knew we had a long day ahead of us. We got up early to make sure that we packed the car. And then on our way out around like 9:30 in the morning-ish, we ran into Lori, April, Megan, and Sean in the lobby of the hotel because we were all staying at the same place. We stayed at the Comfort Inn this year. So if we're back in Guilford next year, I think we might book that one again because it is a really convenient location. Yeah, that'll be like a first day. Now we know the lay of the land and what's a good place to stay. But so it was really nice to run into some fellow attendees the next morning and hear some more of their stories. And just I didn't get a lot of time or much of a chance last year to talk to Lori, but I felt like we vibed. It was like one of those instant simpatico, like our neurospices run on the same wavelength, and so that was really nice. And then just to catch up with everybody before they had to, get on the road again.
I feel like Lori was perhaps like a friend of a spirit animal for both of us in different ways. You for the neurospiciness, and me for the fact that this woman was just going in on cold steak from dinner the night before at 9 in the morning and just talking about how it was still coming off of her fork like butter. And I was like, I think we just both found a very amazing new friend here, and I'm here for it.
She was wishing that we had gone to Prime like a fifth time. And I was like, no, I'm good with the Mayflower, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah.
I get it. But yeah, then we got on the road just after 9:30, I think. More McDonald's breakfast and massive coffees. And yeah, like we said at the top, basically we hadn't even left Guilford town limits before we were like, so next year, what are we gonna do for this? Like, what do you think about that? Like, do we do the costume contest? I don't know. So it was a whole slew of things that we simply can't know just yet. There's still a lot of decisions to be made and announcements to be made before we can truly start planning for next year. But of course, like there's no question in our minds that we'll be back. Jenny's already sent out the survey, the feedback survey for this year, and I was reading through it, and there was a question that said something along the lines of like, I'll go anywhere with this group. And, of course, I'm coming back. Is that even a real question? And so, yeah, those are my answers to those two. I don't care where we go next year. We'll make it work. I love New England in general. I feel like Jenny hasn't steered us wrong ever. So I trust her to make the right decision and take us somewhere great, whether it's Guilford again or a different state, a different town, whatever it is. All that matters is we're going.
Yeah. And we've said it so much before. We'll continue to say it probably just about every single week, if not month, in the lead up to 2025. Sorry, not sorry. But just keep tabs on the website if you want to. There's an entire Facebook planning group that will just, I'm sure, be posting year round about just staying in touch with each other, talking about plans in the lead up to next fall. if you're on the fence about going, you shouldn't be, but just join this group, and you'll get more insight. You can always ask questions about the event, about attending solo, about coming with a group, about the costume contest, about meet and greets, whatever it is that you need to know. There are people there that will always be willing to help you out and just give you the insight that you need. So just join that group and just keep tabs on the 2025 event. You will never regret going to this. It's just the most amazing, incredible weekend you'll ever have if you're a GG fan.
Yeah, and I find it so remarkable that it has this following about it where so many people this year are people I recognize from last year. And there are several people posting in the group all the time being like, I couldn't go this year. Like it didn't work out for me and I'm so sad and I can't wait to see you guys next year. You know, the FOMO is real. There's something really special about this. You know, we've been to conventions and Comic-Cons and fan expos and all kinds of things, and nothing touches this experience. It's singular in what it's been able to accomplish in terms of, you know, finding just some of the best cast and crew out there and bringing them in and attracting, again, some of the best fandom people we've ever met. So, yeah, as she said, you will not regret it. So definitely keep an eye out. I would say January, February is typically when she starts putting the tickets up for sale. So especially keep an eye out at that time, but definitely keep an eye on social media and everything in the lead up to that, because I'm sure there will be a bunch of announcements as the feedback starts to roll in about this year.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the biggest takeaways I think from this event as well is that when you buy a ticket to it, what you get is all encompassing. You're not paying for your ticket and then you have to pay for all of the additional extras like autographs, photographs, meet and greets, attending panels. When you sign up, you have access to everything. And you can even pass some of the cast and crew on the street outside of their scheduled meet and greets, and they'll still be willing to take a selfie with you or sign a book or just, chat about how your day is going. It really is truly an event like no other. So we personally, but I know the fandom at large, cannot thank Jenny and Marcus enough for the amazing work that they have done in all of the years that they have been running this to put together this event, and for the community that they have established, which is one of the most warm and welcoming and open that I think you will ever be a part of.
Yeah. I think one of the last things I'll say about this weekend is just like on the way back, as we were passing through Massachusetts, we stopped at Dunkin'. As a Canadian, I don't really get Dunkin'. I can't remember if I've ever been to Dunkin', but when in Massachusetts in October, you get Dunkin' pumpkin coffee and you realize that it's better than Starbucks. I don't know how. I heard about it on YouTube. Someone said it was better. I have to concur. And again, they're going to revoke my Canadian card for this, but Dunkin' is better than Tim Hortons. That might be a hill I die on.
Sacrilege to your people, but you can live with the outcome of that.
Yeah. I just had to make my feelings about pumpkin coffee known. As we are recording this, we're just a couple days out from Halloween. So the pumpkin spice is at its peak strength right now. So yeah, it's on everybody's brain. Just had to address it. I don't actually drink that much pumpkin coffee. Like, you would think that I would drink a ton of it, but like, again, with the Starbucks especially, I find it just kind of tastes funny. The last couple of years when they've had the apple macchiato, I've enjoyed that a lot more for some reason. I don't know what it is, but the pumpkin spice cold foam cold brew is the superior pumpkin drink. But now that I don't have a Starbucks near my work, I have had a grand total of one this year. It just felt like something that had to be ticked off a seasonal bucket list. And then I was like, no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to have pumpkin coffee from Dunkin' because it was something I'd never had before. And I was like, actually, this is better. Can we get Dunkin' in Canada? Can we make that happen?
I will give you Dunkin' in Canada if you give us Mary Brown's in the States. I'll trade.
Well, I have to be able to also keep Mary Brown's.
We'll keep Dunkin' and give you Dunkin', and you keep Mary Brown's and you give us Mary Brown's.
That's absolutely a deal I can get on board with.
Well,
Anyway.
to the CEO of Duncan and Mary Brown's, because we know you're listening to this podcast, get on it.
If you can make this happen for us, we'll love you forever.
You'd have a delighted Canadian and American who are ever in your grace. So, yeah.
Anyway, any last thoughts before we start winding this down?
I mean, nothing that I haven't said, but again, I just want to reiterate, keep tabs on the FanFest website. We'll include a link to it in our description below, as well as a link to the planning group on Facebook that is just, flowing with people posting year round about even meetups that they're orchestrating outside of the regular yearly event. And just consider going. You'll make so many wonderful new friends, meet so many great new people. We'll be back in 2025. It's not a doubt in our minds whatsoever. And we just genuinely hope that we will get to see everybody there again who has attended in the years past. And if you're going to come in 2025 for the first time, we look forward to meeting you as well. It's just a delightful weekend.
Yeah, it's sure to be a massive year because this is the 25th anniversary of Gilmore Girls. And so I feel like Jenny has stuff up her sleeve. I don't know what it is. She likes to play things really close to the vest so that she doesn't make promises she can't keep, which is, relatable. But I get the sense that they're going to go big for 25 years. And, it's part of the reason that the cruise is happening as well. But it's going to be like a double down FanFest year. And I don't know how she does it. But once again, thank you to Jenny and to Marcus for all of the hard work all year round. You guys are witches and wizards. I literally don't know where you find the time or the energy or the resolve to keep going sometimes, but you do. You constantly do because, you love this show and this fandom so much, and we feel that. We want you to know that we feel that and that we appreciate absolutely everything that you do to make this fandom what it is.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny and Marcus.
Yeah.
Top tier humans.
Totally.
But I think that is going to wrap us up for this particular episode. If you attended this year and you have any of your own thoughts or personal experiences about Guilford and the 2024 event that you want to share, drop us a comment below and let us know what are some of your best takeaways, best moments from the weekend that you experienced. We would just love to continue to revel in this and hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah. Oh, just one last tip before you go. Bring like throat lozenges or throat spray or, something, Halls, to soothe your throat. Like Laura, her voice sounds better now than it has in some time because of just all of the talking and the, screaming, singing, all of it, laughing. So come prepared because when we were at dinner, poor Cindy sitting across from us had completely lost her voice and had to text or like write down in a text app what she wanted to say to us. So this year I brought some throat sprays and my Vocal Zone lozenges, which were such a lifesaver. So come prepared.
Yeah. We'll continue to talk about 2025 as it gets closer. And we'll obviously just throw more tips out there for things that you might need to know. But again, another reason why the planning group is always a really great resource. If you have any additional questions, you can always find us, drop us a comment on one of our videos, or even just send us an email. And we'll be happy to answer any additional questions that you have.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say for this episode is Gilmore 24. Make sure you go vote, Americans. You're on the precipice of yet another turnover of power, and it's time to exercise your democratic voice to make sure that your country doesn't fall into fascism.
Yep. So go rock out the vote, get to your local polling place, and just exercise your right to democracy and let your voice be heard. We encourage that here. Other than that, I think that's really going to wrap us up here. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Again, drop us a comment and share your thoughts if you have any about this event this year, if you have any questions about the event for 2025. And on your way out, if you could also just remember to do all those YouTube things for us, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, It is one click below, and it really, really does help us out. And we are always just so grateful for that support.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll see you again in the coming weeks. We've got a few more episodes left for this year, and then we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus for December just to wrap some things up and get started for next year. We're hoping to get everything out on audio over the next year or two, and that's going to be a whole project unto itself. But yeah, we've got a few more things on the docket for November. So make sure you stick around, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday for dinner.
In omnia paratus.
Cheers.